Hello! Roman clothes. Well, they were usually made of fine wool spun by their families, or if really wealthy, of course their servants or slaves. And if you were very rich, you could buy imported silks, linens and fine cottons. But keeping these clean were very difficult, and they would have to use chemicals like sulphur and urine to get the stains out, which probably didn't end up very nice smelling clean clothes. Now the toga was a status symbol, and only male citizens of Rome were allowed to wear it. And the material was literally just draped on the body, not pinned, because that showed you that you were wealthy enough to need somebody to help you dress in these things. Many times for public events it was law to wear the toga, and sometimes you would even be dictated at what colour you were supposed to wear. It was almost like a uniform for wealth, and so plain white were for adult male men. An off-white toga, sometimes with purple edging, was for people like magistrates and upper-class boys. Dark-coloured togas were for mourning or funerals. And something called a bleach toga, or a toga candida, was for politicians on things like state events. Purple toga with gold edging was literally for the emperor or for victorious generals. Now the tunica, which was a knee-length garment, was for ordinary citizens of Rome, people like the nobles or even slaves. It could be worn with a belt or plain, and usually underneath the toga. And that was usually just made of linen, so that was easier to wash than the rich outer garments. Now both men and women would have worn a simple loincloth like this called a subligaculum. And there was usually the open-toed sandal, and that all depended on your wealth and status, depending on how many pieces of leather you could afford. Sometimes closed-toe shoes were worn for outdoor activity, depending on what you were doing, like today really. And the hobnail sandal, called caligae, were fixed to a really tough leather base or cork base for people like soldiers and workers. Now men were only supposed to wear one piece of jewellery, and this was a ring that was used as a seal for dipping into the wax when you wanted to send a letter or some sort of document. Many men flaunted this, some wanted to wear more than that, and of course lovely brooches were used to fix glorious cloaks. Now the cloaks, there were a couple of types. These were full wraps of warm leather or wool cloaks called the Birrus Britannicus. And this was a simple, small, circular woolen cloak called the Lucerna. Knee breeches for soldiers, workers, or perhaps in a bit colder weather. These were called braccae or feminula. So the ladies, what were they wearing? Well, of course, a simple long tunic for the ladies called a tunica, depending on your wealth again, whether it was made of wool, silks or linens, and depending on where you were going that day. And these could be a variety of colours for ladies now, no restrictions there, sometimes worn with very fancy belts. The stola was the women's toga, draped around the body, but this time it didn't matter if you wanted to use nice brooches to fasten it at the shoulder. And this is what is called a palla, which was a large rectangle piece of cloth draped around like a cloak, and it was one that covered your head. Makeup was worn, but it was often made of chalk or white lead, covered the face, the neck, the shoulders and the arms to make you look beautiful and alabaster-like, and a nice rouge for your cheeks. For women, an array of jewellery could be worn, and these would have been made of gold, bronze, silver, expensive metals. Now the hairstyles were generally based on what the emperor was wearing at the time, for men or women. By women, I don't mean what the emperor was wearing, but of course what his wife was wearing. And she might have been able to afford all these lovely expensive hair pieces and wigs to enhance. As far as underwear is concerned, before the bra, in the Roman times anyway, boobs would have been bandaged up just to keep them in place, for modesty and for a bit of warmth as well. And there is evidence of leather knickers being found and made, so it doesn't always mean to say that they wore the old loincloth. If you've enjoyed another little historical fashion story, well, do join me again next time. Until then, bye!